I'm Rod Mullen. I'm the co-founder and president of Amity Foundation. Uh, I've been working in this field for 52 years. I started really almost immediately after I graduated from the University of California at Berkeley, where I was involved in civil rights demonstrations and anti-war, and also was arrested in the free speech movement. I really resonate to what Bryan Stevenson has talked about in terms of we did a lot of work in the civil rights movement to change the laws, but we didn't change the narrative. And for my entire career, I've been really working with people who are the victims of the narrative of inequality. In New Mexico, we work with homeless women, mostly Hispanic and Native American, who are, most of them have been released from prison, they're homeless, they've got kids, and they're at risk of HIV and exploitation. Here in Arizona, we work primarily with Native American tribes from the Southwest, but also from other parts of the country. And as Mr. Stevenson has said, we probably need a museum, the equivalent of the Legacy Museum for Native Americans who were really victims of a genocide, an unrecognized genocide. And the negative narrative about Natives still keeps them suppressed and poor and victims of some of the worst of things about our society. And of course, this trip that we took, I took faculty members who'd been with Amity for many years, African Americans, except for the one student who was Jewish. We have worked with primarily black and brown people under criminal justice supervision in California. We work in 5 prisons, probably see about 2,000 to 2,500 people a day in our prison projects. And we have 2 large residential facilities in California and a jail project, and we're also working on providing housing, and jobs for people as they go through the Amity process. I think I think sometimes we're so close, proximity is not really an issue at Amity. I know it's one of the things that Mr. Stevenson brought up in his great speech on how to change the world. We have plenty of proximity. Sometimes I think we're so close to the trees we don't really step back and see the forest. And I really wanted our people to understand that we're part of this attempt to change the narrative in our country, which desperately needs to happen. And I think for the people that you'll meet on this video who went with me, they really got it. They really got how this narrative, which started with slavery, which went to Jim Crow, and then to mass incarceration, that we're really part of trying to reverse that and to change it every day. And so I was very moved, first by the Legacy Museum and the memorial, which was so powerful, and also by the effect that it had on our people who were there, who really had a very powerful experience in terms of their own histories, going back generations, and in terms of their current work. For them to understand we are really shoulder to shoulder with the Equal Justice Initiative in trying to change this derogatory narrative, which is a cancer in our society. And I hope that as things continue, there will be an opportunity to do something similar for Native Americans, which is really desperately needed.
We're here at the Museum of National Peace and Justice, and the first thing I noticed when we went in is there was an entire family with a little bitty infant baby taken into slavery, and they were each trying to hold on to each other and not let them go. It makes me realize how and why that African American families are the most split families of anybody, because it started so long ago. Today has been a time of going back in history. It feels like I went back in time somewhere to where I could actually feel and see.
You know, one thing that really stood out to me in a museum, like there was a sign that said, no blacks, Jews, or dogs allowed. And I really thought about it, and that didn't offend me as a Jewish American, it just offended me as a human being. And there are a lot of other things that were just really, like, at first difficult to watch, but then I also just learned a lot of things I didn't know.
People don't understand the sacrifice that people made. Yes, we had people in our community didn't believe in equal justice and stuff like that. A lot of people suffered, but it's now for us to take full advantage of the opportunity that is presented to us. So I had a different perspective today. I wanted to be angry, but I couldn't get angry because I had more feelings about the sorrow of the people that made the human sacrifice for me to have the opportunity to have freedom. They give a lot of servicemen and women praise, but for me, man, these people that all the tombs that we experienced and just walking through the museum and reading some of the literature and stuff inspired me to, like, you know, become a better person and change some of my vocabulary, you know. And I promise not to use the N-word no more, because just looking at that, man, it just ripped through my heart, man, where all the signs was using that type of language and stuff. People had to go to the back of the bus. People couldn't sit down and eat.
You always have a kind of a in your head understanding of why we have the civil rights movement and the Middle Passage and how blacks have been treated bad, but just seeing it depicted this way and how long they left people hanging in the trees and their bodies are dilapidated, and then all these memorials and the names, it's just a lot. And it's upsetting that people can be objectified in that way and treated that badly just because in the name of money, in the name of having power over them. And I understand why my family left the South and came out to the West, even though, you know, it's not much, it's recreated, which is even more irritating. But it's alarming. Right after we left out here, I'm a little pissed off. It's upsetting.
And this is just documented pieces that I experienced today of documentation of slavery, of lynchings, of being stepped on, and all the, you know, the physical and emotional, mental things that people went to. The breakup of the family structure, the kidnappings, all of this. This was just the ones that were documented. There must have been 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 times as many people not documented that slipped through the cracks. Many emotions. At first it was anger, you know, I was confused, I wondered why, and here it is, 2018, and basically the same stuff that was going on back then when my granny was living is still going on now, just in a different mass, but I got a different perspective. I just have to grasp and understand my feelings, and instead of reacting in a negative manner, take this opportunity. I'm obligated to teach. I'm obligated to seek more knowledge of what can I do to change things, my part. There were many times I didn't want to vote for nobody because I felt like nothing would change, and it would, you know, everybody was crooks and untrustworthy. I've been a part of the prison institutional business for many years, incarceration, and now I have obligation. Now I see my obligation is to try to change things.
My great-grandmother She used to tell stories about growing up in Arkansas and how she had to come out of school at the age of 9 to help in the fields and help around the house. So that gave me a lot of insight on some of the things that she would say, some of the stories she would tell, and also with the mass incarceration, the beginning of it, watching it at the beginning of growing up in the ghetto in Compton and watching how the police had so much police brutality that was going on and how they were setting up the guys, some of them that was innocent, but they had to take a deal from not having the lack of funds, of not being able to pay for attorneys, and how when the drugs were set in our community, watching them begin to have war against one another. This is all a part of that. This is just the slavery was the beginning. Just another form of enslavement to me, the way I see it. Even the police brutality that's going on today, it's just the beginning, showing us where it stemmed from and what happened back in the 1800s and through our ancestors and different things like that. It's the same thing that's going on today.
It wasn't touching my heart until I saw this picture of this guy that had been whipped really bad, and he had huge welts on his back, and it felt like I could feel him, so I touched it and I did feel it, and my energy just I could realize like what kind of pain that he went through, where he was whipped over and over in the same spots. We've always just heard about these stories, not seeing like how many people were lynched. In one article I was reading where they were taking the lynching pictures of people being lynched and putting them on postcards, which kind of answers my question as to what happened to the fight. Like, why didn't we fight back? Because there was so much fear instilled in so many people that they couldn't fight back.
Another thing that really personally hit home for me is that there was a list of all the counties in the South and how many lynchings that they had recorded. And those are just the ones they had recorded. And my county, Fulton County, Georgia, had the most names listed out of any plaque there. And that was just really eye-opening, because growing up in that county, one would never guess, because things have really changed since then.
And most of the thing that stood out to me the most was when I was listening to the holograms. They was talking about God, and they was holding on to a Bible, so they developed some type of faith to draw from. And that inspired me to take this and share with my children and my grandchildren what our ancestors went through, just to be able to have an opportunity to go to school and get an education.
And I remember walking in Donovan in 1990, and the first thing that hit my heart was, this is where slavery's not over, it's recreated, it just moved into another form, and that was before I even knew the inner workings of the prison, and now we're talking about it, we're addressing it, and at least we're doing something about it, and not sitting on the sidelines and watching it happen, and it's alarming.
It just really makes a lot of sense now that why we have the problems that we do with incarceration and racial injustice. And just kind of doing my own timeline of everything, it really makes me understand that we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go.
Whoever put this together, I thank them for that. And everybody on the face of the earth should, just like the Museum of Tolerance, you need to come and check this out, so it can stir up emotions in you and challenge you to do something about it. And I'm just so very grateful for that.
One day I would like to bring maybe my grandchildren to see some of the things, and work in the community and helping, getting the younger generation to understand what's going on in their life and why their thinking pattern, their cognitive is the way it is, how it's just been designed to be like that, and we went right with it.
What I want to carry out of this is to be the voice for the voices that are not heard. I mean, the mass incarceration has hit home for me personally, in my own personal life and in my family's life. And they had it where you could talk on the phone to somebody in prison for life. And this one lady, she had life for trafficking, which I didn't even know you could get life. So I want to be their voice, because it's been taken away from them. Continue to do my part in voting, which I kind of was done with it, because what's getting better, and that's on all of us, what's gonna get better.
My mother had shared stories about this. I've read books and I've seen different movies, but this had a different impact on me emotionally, and spiritually. So it was very educational for me, and I really appreciate this opportunity that was given to me, and I'm going to use it. And I bought a couple of books I'm going to share with my community peers and stuff like that, just to give them the inspiration. Maybe one day we could all take up do a field trip out here and stuff and go to both museums and stuff
If I die tomorrow, I know that I made a difference in somebody's life. I didn't just lay down and become a statistic, and I didn't just let myself be treated badly and be objectified and misunderstood. I helped some people because my friend Ozel's here, and that really makes me proud. And I know a lot of men that I have helped really help get their life together, get out of prison, stay out of prison, help other men and my friends, and just the way I live. It makes me proud that I met all of you and met Amity, and I'm blessed, and really blessed, truly, and fortunate that I have that to, look forward to, and not like just pretend like nothing's ever happened and let's bury it all. And I'm glad I don't live like that, and I live conscious, and even though it's horrible and painful, at least we face things and try to make it better.